Welcome back into the GSMC Sports Podcast, as we are going to be shifting gears here to the NHL, where we saw the Florida Panthers able to hold off a pretty valiant effort from the Edmonton Oilers coming back, and were able to keep it a Panthers game, and they end up winning 3-0. Now, this was another game here where it feels like the Oilers had an incredible opportunity to swing things back their way. They played a pretty brilliant overall first period where they outshot the Panthers. They were getting good opportunities in front of the net, but that was where Sergei Bobrovsky, who at this point is the odds-on favorite to win the Conn Smythe Trophy, has just been absolutely dominant through this postseason run. Again, we talked about it was Game 4 against the Rangers in the Eastern Conference Finals that he was really able to take on this new level of production and carry the Panthers team in this way. And last night he was phenomenal in that first period. Once again, was able to, ultimately keep the Panthers in this game. The Panthers even ended up scoring late in the first period with a Sam Reinhart goal, and it just felt like such a low blow for the Oilers, who are putting it all out there on the ice, and they just can't seem to get past him. And then in the second period, they were able to end up tying the game pretty early on a Warren Foegele breakaway, but then that stretch came about halfway through the second period where it was just an onslaught of Panthers attack, where they scored 3 goals in the span of about 6 minutes. And it's interesting to sort of break down where you want to put the blame here. Now, Stuart Skinner is somebody who has had a little bit of a target on his chest the entire postseason because he has been inconsistent, and I definitely would not argue that last night was tremendous for him by any means, but you also just saw so many breakdowns from this Edmonton defense that had definitely shown, I guess you could say, some problems during the regular season. They're an offensive identity team, so obviously, you can't expect necessarily that the defense is going to carry them all the way, but you see these instances where, Cody Ceci, who was a healthy scratch in Game 2, he loses a puck race on the boards behind the net. Granted, that coming off of not a great play from Stuart Skinner, where he came out of the net, tried to pass it down the boards, and was just never in position. We continue to see, especially with Skinner, when he has to move laterally on these shots, he just is a step slow, even half a step slow, and that ends up really hurting them. But ultimately, and then you see as well with the Barkov goal late in that period as well, it was just a poor defense getting back, and they ended up Barkov and Rodriguez skating down the ice with one another. Barkov gets an easy look. If you look at the Reinhart goal and the Tarasenko goal, both of those came off of opportunities where the Oilers were just, stymied by this incredible forecheck from Florida that we have seen, the entire postseason, really the past 2 years. And turnovers in the zone, always going to be a recipe for disaster, especially when you're playing this Florida Panthers group. So, just like that, it becomes a game where the Oilers feel like they should be up, and now all of a sudden it's 4-1 headed into the third period, and this Edmonton crowd, which we've seen all playoffs long, be this force almost, that it is just this incredible environment, just sucked the air entirely out of it. Now, again, you have to give credit to the Oilers for battling back there where it's Broberg and McLeod, who aren't necessarily seen as, especially McLeod, who didn't even play all that much in this game, but has had a couple big moments now in the postseason. They end up scoring a couple goals there. The Broberg one almost felt like a total fluke as well, because it went off of the elbow of the Panthers defender Mikolov and ends up falling into the net there. Seemed like at that point that's the only way they're going to really be able to get it past Bobrovsky, but the Oilers were able to turn it on down the stretch of this game, and they were just firing shots after shots on goal, and it really did feel like they dominated the latter half of that third period. But at that point, again, if you want to sort of make some of the comparisons between this series and the NBA Finals, it feels like another one of those situations where Game 3, team that's down, they finally find this level of momentum, but they're already in such a hole that it was just too much to overcome, and that was the case for Edmonton last night, and we have a 3-0 series lead for the Florida Panthers. Now, it is going to be interesting to see how this plays out from here. Game 4 is on Saturday. The Panthers are going to have a chance to sweep the Edmonton Oilers. This would be the first sweep in the Stanley Cup Finals since 1998. I believe that Steve Levy on the ESPN broadcast last night mentioned that this is the first time in 28 years that we've seen both the NBA Finals and Stanley Cup Finals both at 3-0 series leads. So it would be all kinds of unprecedented. As sports fans, a little bit disappointing that we're not necessarily getting the same level of, production length out of these series that we were hoping for. But, for the Oilers, it's a tricky situation, because ultimately for them, they have just been unable to beat Bobrovsky, and none of their star players, and it's not like Connor McDavid, like he's been in on a number of plays here. He has 2 assists in the series as well, and I wouldn't say he's been bad by any means, but I think he might actually be at 3 assists at this point. It's 2 or 3, but, point being, McDavid, Draisaitl, all of these top guys for the Oilers just have not been able to produce up to this point. And again, it's not like they're getting, it's not like they aren't getting looks. Hyman's another one as well on that first line. Nugent Hopkins, again, you can just sort of go on with this list, and you're not getting that top-end production from your goal scorers. And when you're playing a goalie as hot as Bobrovsky is right now, and you're playing a defense that's as physical as the Panthers are with that forecheck, you are asking for trouble. And ultimately, the Oilers are currently in trouble with a 3-0 series deficit. Now, Game 4 at home, I feel like there's got to be some level of pride for them to stick up here. I feel like on the other end, the Panthers have this sense of unfinished business because of the fact that they made it all the way to the finals last year and ultimately just came out flat. I believe only won 1 game in that series, so I would definitely not expect the Panthers to take their foot off the gas by any means, but that level of desperation that just comes into play, have to feel like McDavid nets one in this upcoming matchup. But again, we'll see. It's definitely easier said than done when you're playing against somebody that is playing at the level of a Sergei Bobrovsky. But let me know in the comments section if you think there is any chance the Oilers can somehow swing this series around. But I've been making these comparisons from the Stanley Cup Finals to the NBA Finals. Like we mentioned, the Boston Celtics have a 3-0 series lead against the Dallas Mavericks, and tonight there is a chance that they could sweep the Mavericks and bring home banner number 18. So we are going to be diving into that series, this game in particular, but whether or not the Mavericks have any chance of pulling off the unprecedented comeback of a 0-3 deficit comeback. So stick with us, and we will be right back after this quick break.